Good morning. Veterans Day is coming up next Monday, and it was Veterans Day 2018 that I stopped at a Whataburger. I was on my way to the Veterans Day parade, and I saw a guy in there, and he had a T-shirt that said 22 Kill. And I started talking to him. He was with his family, and his name was Dan Lombardo, and he was going to the Veterans Day parade. And Dan and I became friends that day. And Dan introduced me to Sheena, and Sheena is absolutely a rock star in raising funds and just a great American, a great patriot, and she does so much for so many people. So this is our friend Sheena
Yes.
Sharapata.
There you go. You got it.
Hey, I got it. So Sheena, welcome to Hometown Heroes.
Thank you for having me.
And we just saw you yesterday. We were at a Light Up to Live event, and you were there with your tribe, and we were there. Mary and I were there with our tribe. So exciting time.
Yes.
And Sheena, just tell us a little bit about what you do, because I mean, you work for a great company.
Yes.
And you are very involved in the community. So
yes, so I work for Randall Reed's Planet Ford 635, and then RAD-Rides is our aftermarket lifted truck company. And next year I've actually been there 10 years, which is hard to believe. But what's really unique about our dealerships is it's family owned, and they give us the freedom to have basically a community liaison relations person. So we're able to, each store is allowed to get involved in their community and kind of dive in head first with different nonprofits and just make a huge impact in the community. So it's pretty unique where we've gotten really involved in Garland, where we're located. And, you know, we're able to connect with like Garland Police Never Walk Alone Foundation. And then I'll kind of go to my bosses and say, here's a great organization. Here's what they're doing. We would love to do maybe a clay shoot or a golf tournament for them. And then we kind of build those relationships. And then I do a lot on LinkedIn where I connect with different companies in the area and try to basically get them to support the event, and the companies network together, but then they're supporting the mission, and in turn, you know, raising 40, 50, 60 grand per event to give back to the nonprofit. So
that's a good amount to raise in just one event.
Oh yeah.
But you mentioned the family owned business, and that's the Reed family.
Yes.
And Mary and I are both really familiar with the Reed family and Randall and Sherry, and just a magnificent family that gives back so much to our veterans and our first responders and our military. So,
oh yeah.
and it's amazing just to go to the donors, you know, the donors dinner, and
yes.
I mean, there's not a live auction or something. Randall says, you know, these people said they're going to give 25,000. Is there anybody else that wants to? And then you just see another hand pop up and another hand pop up, and they say,
Yes.
how about 10,000? Well, 3 or 4 people, you know, and it raised probably, you know, $250,000 in one evening.
Yes, this was their, I think, 7th annual clay shoot and 8th annual golf tournament. And then they have a dinner, like, thank you for sponsors. And it's actually incredible what this organization has grown into. And now basically they're using all of the dealerships all over Texas to kind of bring in sponsors and their donors through the dealerships. And then so far they're chosen 3 nonprofits that they give the funds to, which are all local to Texas, which is incredible. So we're helping veterans locally. So they're doing Patriot Paws, they're doing the Adaptive Training Foundation, and then they're doing VETS, which is more like the psychedelic therapies. And I believe they're moving to Texas. So to have, you know, those organizations all present and having veterans from Texas there was pretty neat to see. So.
And the first time I was exposed to any information about the psychedelic therapy, you know, I thought, wow. Yeah. And then within the next week, I heard 2 or 3 other people talking about it because they get such great results.
Yes. So, and I'm always open to, obviously with mental health and traumatic brain injuries, and I've had 8 concussions myself, that there's different therapies for everyone. Not one thing is going to work for everyone. So, just being open to other therapies that can help individuals is good.
And just to do these events, it takes a lot of coordination. I mean, you don't just call up the clay place and say, "Hey, I'm going to do an event. We'll be here at 7:00 in the morning." I mean, it takes a year of planning, and then to get all the shooters and get all the sponsors and
So it's funny because obviously I post a lot on social media. LinkedIn is the big one. And that's where I go add new companies, add the people that work there. So then they're following me. And the content is, all the events for the veterans and first responders. So I'm posting all these pictures because every time you post one picture, a different group of individuals from a company may see it. And then they try to sign up, or if they like that post, I'll reach out and see if their company would be interested. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, she just smiles and photos and videos." And I'm like, "Oh, it's basically 4 or 5 events that are, 200 people or more. And then the boxing event was 400 people. So basically you're planning 4 or 5 big events throughout the year at one time. And I have little spreadsheets going of, who I'm reaching out to, who's signed up. And most events we start, I would say 9 to 10 months ahead of time to start going. So it's a lot of multitasking at the same time.
And Mary, I got a question for you. Do you do LinkedIn? I mean, I've got a deal on it, and I've got 1,000 or more followers on it, but I don't understand it at all. So maybe you can help me sometime, Sheena.
Yeah,
understand it.
Maybe help both of us know that better, because being retired, I have it, and people will reach out occasionally on it. But when, I kind of look at it as, well, I'm not looking for a job.
Yeah.
And people want to connect with me sometimes that I know from, my service. And so I'll go in and I'll accept or whatever, but I really don't even get in there that often, but I have it.
Yeah. So that's what most people say. They're like, it's LinkedIn's just for hiring, or this guy's adding me from an electric company and I don't do that. Why would he add me? And I don't do TikTok, but Instagram, if you're posting, you don't know who's actually looking at that. They could be, in Florida. Are they going to really fly in for the event that we're doing? Versus LinkedIn, if you're focusing on looking up companies that are in Dallas, Fort Worth, and when you follow them, to the right of it, it'll say 500 people work here. So I'll start connecting with certain job titles and descriptions. And on Facebook, people keep that more personal for families, so they may not add random people. But on LinkedIn, they're like, sure, connect. So essentially, you're building your brand as a person versus like a company page or a nonprofit page. People have to go like that page, and a lot of people won't do that. But if you're building your own personal page and then you're connecting, you're adding people in DFW who can in turn support your events and the nonprofit. And everyone who's in business, most everyone's on LinkedIn.
So we need to look that up, Mary, and get some tutoring from Sheena on it. One of our friends, Jason, with Servolution, he said, "I'm on LinkedIn. Let's connect." So I'll connect with him, and you can connect with him, Mary and Sheena, because it's a good tool. Thomas Holler. You met him yesterday. He was at the luncheon we went to at the Dallas Country Club. So Thomas is a great patriot, and he's a great volunteer. So I'm looking forward to seeing Thomas at some of the Light Up to Live, or some of the other things that you do. Carla Wicks is a Gold Star mom and a veteran, and she said good morning. And then Miriam Hink, I call her the wagon master, because she gets out there and at our roll call luncheons, and you need to come to one pretty soon, Sheena.
Yeah.
But we feed 500 people, and we serve the meals to the veterans at the table, and Miriam's out there directing all these volunteers with all these trays. But
Miriam usually has half of the room, and Carla has the other half, and they just kind of In about 10 minutes, we feed all of those people.
Wow. Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, and both of them would probably be good volunteers because both of them like to volunteer. So, and how do you coordinate all your volunteers?
Oh
Do you
gosh.
do it?
Yeah, a lot of it is just there's some incredible people, which you know all of them. But Sherry with Sons of the Flag and Christella, Lori, she's so phenomenal. I know her from Garland. She actually used to be the mayor of Garland. And then obviously through the dealership, Pam and Suzanne. So we actually have this core group of us where, you know, Sherry's with another nonprofit, but since we come help at Sons of the Flag, she'll actually come to like the Light Up to Live events and help, or the Garland Police events and help. So they all kind of just travel and want to help at all the events, which is really nice.
And at the Garland Police event, there's that one guy that's pretty muscled up, and he's like a SWAT guy or something, or
yeah, Garland SWAT.
You look at him, you think, man, I wouldn't want to deal with him, but
yeah, but they're all so genuine, and they're like big teddy bears. I mean, all the PD, and when we do that event, it's incredible because you know you get 10, 15, 20 guys that come together and help set up for the clay shoot with all the tables and everything. And then they actually helped for the Garland 9th Street Gym project that we just did for the kids. It's a nonprofit. It was actually founded through the police. So they actually were helping train these kids. So when we set up the ring and the ballroom, similar to you were saying you did last night, we had, you know, 10, 15 Garland PD show up to set up that ring for that big event for the kids. So they're all kind of helping each other, which is really nice.
And that's the Police Athletic League, the PAL, isn't it, in Garland? Does that 9th Street?
It used to be called the Garland Boxing Gym, and now they call it the Garland 9th Street Gym Project. And about 200 kids, and a lot of them, it used to be kind of gang and drug prevention to get the kids off the streets. And now it's anybody goes there. And, you know, some of the kids have no parents, one parent, some have two parents. But it teaches them discipline. They have a tutor. They have to have good grades. And it's right in downtown Garland. But most people, I had never even heard of it. And we were able to throw an event together in 5 months and raise $40,000. And our goal for next year on June 6th is hopefully to hit 70 or 80,000 for them. And they travel all over the country for competitions. And one of the kids, Alex, who you met, he actually was in the Olympic trials and was one fight away from the Olympics. So just kind of like giving these kids recognition and more funds in Garland for them to be able to travel more and compete. So.
Yeah, and boxing's so important. You know, I'm the photographer for the state of Texas for the Golden Gloves, but you know, we have 5 nights of regional tournament. And then the next week we have 4 nights of state tournament. So hundreds and hundreds of bouts. And, you know, I take about 2,000 pictures a night. And, you know, I kind of get weary sometime, but I just think about capturing those images for those kids.
Oh, yeah.
When they get to be 70 years old, they're going to look at that and say, I remember the day that I stepped into the ring and I accomplished something great. You know, it's not so much winning or losing, but just to step in there by yourself with another competitor and box. And I've done it the first year I did it after the state tournament. I got a note from a parent from San Antonio, and she said, my son fought in the state championship and won, but I couldn't afford to come there. But because of your pictures, I was able to see what my son did.
That's amazing.
And that just kind of always sparks, you know, that desire to give back to those kids. So, you know, just a great organization and really helps protect those kids from the street.
Yes. And I've always said this about you, but I mean, you're a true blessing to have at our events because having those photos allows us to capture those moments and to share with everyone else to get more people involved to help raise more funds for the nonprofit. So we always appreciate you and your incredible pictures. Somehow he gets, you know, the shotgun opening up and the shooting out and the smoke and
well, there's not a lot of action shots at a clay shoot, you know.
It's crazy how Rick gets, he just seems to capture the exact right moment.
Yes.
You know,
I'm just a lucky guy with a camera, you know. But yeah, the Garland police, what's the other organization?
Yeah, so Garland Police Never Walk Alone Foundation, and they help Garland PD and their immediate family financially through an illness or injury. And then now they're actually helping with mental health, kind of through partnering up with other organizations.
And you have just a clay shoot every year, or you have a golf tournament too? Or
so right now we're doing a clay shoot for them. And then they actually just did like a Halloween event. They do a bass tournament. Those are their events.
Okay.
And then there's, I think, one other one that they're focusing on, but the clay shoot is one that we did 40,000 the first year, 40,000 the second year. And then March 21st is the third annual. And we're hoping to maybe, hitting 50, 60,000 plus because that's one of their big events. So we're kind of focusing on growing that for them.
And one thing at those clay shoots that you do a good job of is to have great raffle prizes.
Yes.
And a lot of guns.
Yes.
And, I don't participate in those raffles very often, but, this year I did one raffle and came home with 2 guns.
I think we won like the last 2 events we pulled.
Yeah. Then the next event I got another gun. So I mean, I kind of like those raffles now.
So lucky.
We had one at our roll call clay shoot, 20 guns in 20 minutes.
Oh wow!
And they choose the ticket. You win a gun, put it back in the deal. I think we had 5 people that won 2 guns, didn't we, Mary?
It was 4 or 5. Now we know for sure one of them only bought 1 ticket.
Oh my gosh!
Some of them bought multiple tickets, so we're not sure if we pulled, the same one twice or what. But
it was exciting.
We had a disinterested third party pulling the tickets, so that it was all on the up and up. But everybody's like, well, why is he pulling the ticket and then stopping and looking at the ticket before he hands it to them to read the name? Well, because it was Rick's grandson and he wanted to see
God. But he didn't pull my name. So.
He never pulled Rick's name.
That's so funny. Yeah, we try to, Joe with Prospect Hill Flag Company, he's a veteran as well, and connected with him, like 7-8 years ago. But if you go to his Instagram, he does those metal wavy flags and the big framed ones and custom work. So we actually used to use him a long time ago, and then he did some other stuff, and now he's back making all the flags again. So I was like, yes. So we just used him at the last event for Sons of the Flag, all those metal ones.
He does such a great job.
Yes.
So there's a backstory that you have, because I mean, you don't just do all this nonprofit stuff and raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for these charitable organizations, but you've had some health issues that is pretty rare.
Yeah.
And tell us about that.
Oh gosh. So I could talk for hours on this, so I'll condense it for you. But basically, in high school, I played soccer, and I had a full ride athletic college scholarship, and I actually had to forego that. But I ended up having 8 concussions over probably from when I was maybe 13, 14 to 17 years old. And I started getting, they told me, migraines with aura. I actually went in and would get imaging done, CAT scans, MRIs, and they always said, you're normal. And I would go back and play, 2 weeks later. And I started getting these interesting symptoms. So I would get these episodes where I would get vertigo, I'd get blurred vision, my whole arm and hand would tingle up, or when your foot goes to sleep, and it was like dead weight, like I couldn't even feel it. And then it would go into nerve pain in my nose, my tongue, my teeth, ice pick pain to my eye, and then I would throw up. So, we were concerned, went in, and they're basically saying that, these are migraines. And my last game, I was running in soccer, and the ball hit me in the back of the head when I was kind of trying to turn when this girl shot on goal. and my whole body just like went numb. And I was like, man, I can't keep doing this. And that's when I actually quit playing at the end of my junior year, and didn't play my senior year. And, went to all these doctors and they kept saying your imaging's normal. And I'll never forget, I think I was 15 or 16. It was one of the scariest moments is they said, well, does your arm go numb on the other side? And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, well, think really hard. And I was like, well, I think 1 or 2 times it did. And they're like, good, you don't have a brain tumor. And I was like, what? So that was kind of the beginning episodes. And those symptoms kind of got progressively worse. In college, I went to Oklahoma. And then after college, came back home, and those same symptoms kind of continued on, I would say, until I was 25, 26 years old. And I kind of tried to eat better and figure out what my triggers were and just kind of lived with it. And then when I was 26, 27, it was almost like all those symptoms stopped and these new ones started. So basically I had insane head pressure where it felt like someone was doing this to my head all the time. My eyes felt like they were going to pop out of my head. And I even went to the eye doctor and had the eye pressures tested. My hand would do the tingling thing and I'd kind of have to hit it. And then my eyes, I would get floaters in my vision, watery eyes. And this is all at like random different times, floaters, vision. My muscles hurt so bad. I was getting 6 to 8 deep tissue massages a month. It was really bad in my shoulders, my lat muscles, and then it would start going into my elbow and like into my hand where it was tingling. And the massage would help for 3, 4, 5 days. And then it would go away and I'd have to go back again. So I'd be at work at the dealership and I was just couldn't even sit in my chair, and I would drive to the massage place at lunch. So I was just kind of dealing with it and just, didn't feel good at all, obviously. And then when I was about 31, 32, I started getting electric shocks and stabs in my eye, my temple, and my ear. So I'd literally be talking to someone and out of nowhere, it would just like shock you like that. And you never know when it's coming. Same thing with the ear. I'd wake up in the morning and it was just like stab, 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 like straight into your ear. And then the temple almost felt like there was like a worm moving in there. I mean, it was just this tightness that would just be moving through your temple. And it was all at like any moment. You never knew when it was going to happen to you. So I ended up finally saying, what are these shocks and stabs? And I'm not a hypochondriac, but I started thinking, what if I'm having an aneurysm, or what if I do have a tumor? So I ended up going to Baylor, Dallas, and all my MRIs, growing up with soccer was always no tumors, no aneurysms, no MS, no white matter. You have migraines. That's kind of like the stereotypical. So we went in and to Baylor, Dallas, and my aunt actually has this thing called trigeminal neuralgia. So you have 12 cranial nerves, and your 5th one runs kind of like this and down the back of your head. And with trigeminal neuralgia, which is also known as the suicide disease, you have a blood vessel, vein, or artery that just sits there and basically pulsates on your nerve inside your head. And it gets worse as you get older because you have the myelin sheath protective coating on your nerve. Well, if you have something just sitting there pulsating it on all the time, over time, it kind of wears that coating down and it's more direct contact, more pain, more issues. So the traditional symptoms are you have teeth pain so bad you can't eat. People get, root canals, their teeth pulled, they grind up their food in a blender and basically just drink their food. And then if the air, even from the air conditioning from your car, from walking outside, touches your face, you get electric shocks everywhere. And a lot of these people have like protective masks they'll wear because the wind is so bad. So my aunt had that, but I didn't. My teeth were fine. I could touch my face. So we basically had gone to the doctor and they're like, you're fine. Your imaging is all normal. And thank goodness my mom and dad went, and they've been huge supporters. And my mom goes, trigeminal neuralgia, like as a last ditch effort. And she goes, can we just rule it out? And the doctor's like, you don't have that. And we did a special Fiesta MRI, which is a higher resolution that kind of goes looking deeper at that trigeminal nerve. And I'll never forget, I got the imaging done with and without contrast. And the radiologist report comes back and it goes, negative, you don't have it. And I was so upset because I'm like, what's going on? You know, what is it? And 3 days later passes and my phone lights up and it says neurosurgeon, which was auto-programmed somehow, and pops up and I'm like, hello? And it was the neurosurgeon from Baylor. And he goes, I'm reading this and this report is wrong. And he goes, you have a major artery touching your nerve. You have trigeminal neuralgia. And most people think it's crazy to wish this upon someone, but when you're searching for answers and you can't figure out what's wrong, it's like, finally, I have a diagnosis, you know, now we can make a plan of action of, you know, what treatment is. So I was actually really happy to hear that. But then, and my mom and dad make fun of me now because I'm so blunt when I talk about this. But the doctor at the time, I didn't know. He just goes, well, let us know. We can put you on anti-seizure meds your whole life. You can do laser radiation, or there's a craniotomy brain surgery where we can drill a hole in your head and go in and put spacers in. Just let us know. And I was like, what? So that was kind of a lot to process. But I knew, do you know what BC powder is?
Yeah.
So BC powder is like aspirin with caffeine you get at the gas station. And I never wanted to be on anti-seizure meds for migraines. So I just was taking these BC powders, and it's a blood thinner. So essentially it was helping take some of that pressure of the artery off the nerve. And in the very end, I was taking 3 of those a day for like a few years. And I knew my organs couldn't handle that. I knew they couldn't handle the anti-seizure meds. And I remember going into a forum and there was some people that did the laser radiation. And I talked to Rick about this earlier. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, but this is my medical journey. So I'm just, you know, sharing what I found through my journey. And there was a couple people in the chat room who did the laser radiation, and it actually damaged their nerve. And they said, I wish I would have just did the surgery. So that was kind of my, okay, I'm going to do this surgery. So I ended up going on YouTube, and it's called MVD, microvascular decompression surgery. And they basically drill a tiny hole right on your hairline and go into your skull and put a Teflon spacer like this between the artery, blood vessel, or vein that's touching your nerve, so they no longer touch. So I knew nothing about this. I go to YouTube, type it in, and all of a sudden this video from Johns Hopkins with 200,000 views plus pops up, and it's Dr. Lim. And I had this feeling, that's him. So I had this feeling from above that was, this is where you're supposed to go. So, you know, my friends and family are like, what? Johns Hopkins? Like, what's going on? Like, you've never had a surgery in your life. Nothing's ever been wrong with you. And you're going to like go to Johns Hopkins. Why don't you go somewhere in Texas? So I end up calling up to Hopkins, and basically they say, hey, you can fill out this paperwork, and then if we can even help you, we'll assign someone to you. You don't get to pick who you go to. I was like, well, what if I want to go to him? You know? So I'll never forget, 3 days later, I get a phone call and they say, Dr. Lim would like to see you for a consult. And I'm like, wow, man, you know, when the stars are just aligning, you know, it's kind of like you're on the right path from above. So I ended up, I'm stubborn, flew out there by myself and went to the hospital, and his assistant at the time was like, your symptoms are so different. I was like, nope, I want to talk to him. And he walks in the room, and he was the most humble, genuine person, so calm. And he goes, you have a major artery touching your nerve, but your symptoms are so different. But the shocks and stabs is kind of one of the known things that is like, this could help you. So I booked surgery, I believe 4 or 5 weeks later, and it was a one-night stay in the hospital. Some people can be 2 or 3, but most is a one-night stay. And he went in, and I had a major artery touching my nerve that he had already seen. And those little dots is for the stereotactic or wand MRI they do, and it helps with like extra navigation. So I had to wear those dots, and my dad took me to dinner wearing those dots. So I was like, I don't want to go out in public like this. He's like, you're fine. But I'm so thankful for him because I had a place touching, and then that top left picture is my first surgery. I had another place touching that went into my brain stem. And he said, if an inexperienced neurosurgeon would have messed with that, you could have had a severe stroke. So this isn't just something, you go anywhere to do. So I always stress to people, if you're going to do this, like, obviously there's several top doctors. I'm talking about Dr. Lim because he did mine and I can speak for it. And then 5 months goes by, I let time go by, but right after my first surgery, I had always had issues on both sides. But if you talk about that, some doctors say, oh, it doesn't exist. You can't have it on both sides. You don't have it at all. So my parents were always like, just don't talk about the other side. Let's get the bad side fixed. We'll worry about the other side. So this was my left side. I actually called up there and said, hey, can you look at my other side? And they're like, you have a few places that are touching or almost touching on that side too. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I have to do this again. So I kept thinking, what if something goes wrong, or what if it doesn't go as well? And then I had this feeling from above that was, show that you can have it on both sides, show that you can have success. And a lot of doctors say that a vein can't cause issues. And my whole left side was a major vein. So when you see that sometimes these surgeries aren't successful, some doctors leave the veins in there, and my whole left side was a vein causing problems. So that one was a one-night stay. It was actually right before COVID. So they were starting to ground flights, cancel surgeries, and I actually flew home 2 days after, so back to Dallas. So, but I have been 100% successful with both of those surgeries. And since then, stopped counting. Dr. Lim is now head chair of neurosurgery at Stanford, and his team is phenomenal. They do absolutely nothing for me. And I was talking to Rick about this. Sometimes people say, do they pay you? Why do you do this? Did you really have surgery? And I'm like, if you went 18 years with no answers, and you have this knowledge that could potentially help someone or something to look into, why wouldn't you share that story to give someone hope or a chance at them, to find answers?
And this is a picture here, kind of a before and after picture. On the left is before.
Yes.
And because of all the pain and things you were going through, you lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, so I was taking BC powders. I was down to rizatriptan, which is like a migraine med, and they would make me pass out for like 3 hours, and I wouldn't eat. But you can really tell my face on the left. That was at the Sons of the Flag event, the Country for Country concert right before I flew out for surgery. And I was down to like 115 or 16 pounds. And people at work were like, what's wrong with you? Like, you look sick. And I was like, I don't feel good. And that was before I knew what was wrong. At this point, I knew. And then this one is at the same country concert. That was last year, my boyfriend, Michael. And now I'm 139, 140, but healthy, muscle, working out. But literally in my face, you can just see the difference on the left, like how sunken in my face was. And they always say trigeminal neuralgia, you can't see the pain, because people think, oh, you have a headache, but you can't describe when you're constantly getting shocks and stabs, or your head feels like it's going to explode, or your eyes are going to pop out. And this is a good example of, what it does to a person. And somehow I never missed a day of work. And I credit all these events to that, because now, Sherry and Christella, Lori, Pam, they could help execute these. But at the time, 5-6 years ago, I was one of the only ones that knew how to like run it start to finish. So it was like, if I don't do this event, this is 50 grand for a nonprofit that they're not going to get. So it really kept me motivated and doing my job, but it helped me, basically survive and get to the point where I could get to the surgeries and keep me going. So, and Yeah, recovery is usually 6 to 12 weeks, but I'm stubborn, like I said. So I was actually back at work right at 2 weeks. And after my first surgery, a tornado hit Garland. And I shouldn't have done this, but I was actually out serving food in the community because my work was like, you need to wait for 2 weeks to come back. So I actually went out and served food in the community after that.
And this picture was probably in between the two surgeries, I think.
Yes. So that was actually, I remember that was the Light Up to Live event. You took that. And I remember it was our first event after I had my surgery, where I wasn't taking BC powders anymore. We got all the shooters out onto the course. And usually I'm, taking a BC, I'm tired because I can't get up early and it would trigger my migraines. And I remember I was walking back just like, we did it. And Rick was right there. And that's one of my favorite pictures he captured, where it's like, I don't have to take BC powder 3 times a day anymore.
And one thing that you had to refrain from was shooting a shotgun. I mean, you couldn't have that jarring of the shotgun for 6 months or so.
Yeah, so they said, obviously I didn't work out for like 3-4 months. I was learning how to shoot from my boss, Justin, and a lot of his friends. And Dr. Lim said I could shoot again. But basically when that space was in there, scar tissue forms around it. And I didn't want to risk anything with the recoil. Also, there's other nerves that we'll get into that I get nerve blocks for, the occipital nerves. And basically that jarring could kind of pull into my neck. So I made a decision, with all the work we're doing, why risk it shooting shotguns. So
this morning over here by NASJRB, right across the runway is Lockheed Martin, where they make the F-35. So
okay.
for some reason today, they are really flying them. That sound of freedom, I'm having to. I know. I'm going to have to talk to the skipper out there and see if he can shut the runway down on Tuesday morning between 10. Well, I guess I have to talk to Lockheed Martin. So.
Well, it could be either one, because now with the 301st having their own aircraft now, as we saw on Saturday.
Yeah, Mary.
As well.
Mary retired from the Air Force, and she was with under the 301st Fighter Wing, and we went to a ceremony Saturday morning where they got the delivery of their first F-35. So we'll have about 22 F-35s flying around in the next year or so as they bed down all those F-35s. So
that's amazing.
They're allowed.
People that would like to know more about what you've been through can go to your website, and you'll talk to them and kind of tell them your experience. Again, you aren't a doctor and you don't play one on TV or anything, but you've been down this journey and you've helped a lot of people, haven't you?
Oh yeah, it's crazy. If you go to my the whole reason I started the website is my journey's on their podcast, and I'll be adding some more. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I did this because I sit there and try to talk to all these people when they reach out through Instagram, through hashtags or LinkedIn, and they would have so many questions. So honestly, doing podcasts like this is a huge help. And we'll put this one on there as well, because then they can go do the research and listen and learn, and then reach out to me with questions. And a lot of people reach out and say, I didn't even think you would ever respond. And there's so many phenomenal people that I've crossed paths with that I've been able to, when I was in Sedona last year, I actually was able to meet up with one of my friends that had surgery. And then I flew up to Baltimore and connected with 2 of my friends who also had surgery after we connected. So we call them MVD warriors. And there's a huge community of us that have had success, that are good friends, and basically help others. So someone may decide they want to have surgery, and maybe their symptoms are more teeth pain related. my good friend Phoenix in Baltimore, I'll connect them with her, and she talks more about the teeth pain and how her surgery was. And she told me like her boys couldn't even kiss her on her cheek. And after surgery, she could sit outside, watch the storms roll in with no pain. Her boys could kiss her on her cheek, and she sat outside eating a steak on that side.
Wow.
So yeah, so beautiful. And she was one of my biggest supports because she actually understood what I was going through. And after I had my 2 surgeries, she's like, well, you made it through 2 and didn't die, so I'm going to do mine now. So she did hers and lived, and now she helps people. And Chelsea, she's another one. She's up north too. And she actually had surgery in New York and found me on social media and was having all these problems. And she's like, was your recovery this hard? And I was like, no. And she had metal taste in her mouth. She had a high heart rate, blood pressure, fluid. And a lot of these doctors were like, oh, you're good, you need to heal. And went to another place, and they're like, well, this other place helped you, we can't help you. And finally she looked at me, like called me, and I was on vacation. And she, we had only talked on the phone a few times. And she goes, Sheena, I have kids. I need help. Like, what do I do? And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I ended up telling her about Dr. Lim, and she flew laying down on a plane because she couldn't sit up from the pressure and the headaches and the nausea and throwing up. And when she got to Dr. Lim, basically over that skull hole, I have bone cement, which is more naturally accepted. She had a titanium plate, which is what a lot of doctors use. And her body was rejecting the plate, like it was coming out of her head. Yeah. So Dr. Lim took the plate out, and she had a CSF leak. And once he put that bone cement there, literally she flew back home. And I believe 8 or 9 days later, she sent me a picture smiling, and she was at the park with her kids watching her daughter play soccer. So it's just this community being able to help. And I think one of the most beautiful things, there's another warrior who had surgery elsewhere, couldn't make it to Dr. Lim. And, a year goes by, and she goes, thanks for your help. I appreciate your wisdom, but I'm still having all these issues. And she starts talking, and I'm like, do you have metal taste in your mouth? And she goes, I've had this sinus infection for like 6 months. I have like fluid in my nose, my ear. And I'm like, what? Do you have blood pressure is really high? Your heart rate? She goes, yeah, why? So we actually, from Chelsea's story, just patients talking, she went to Dr. Lim. She had a plate and had 2 CSF leaks. And now she's doing great. So it's because of this community, the doctors are excellent in terms of the surgery and the technology and listening, but then the patients, there's more symptoms to all of this than are listed, obviously. So.
And so on your website, they can contact you, yes. But also there's kind of a community of people with similar experiences that yes. You all can talk and share information.
Yes. Yeah. Like there's even a couple people have MS, and they also have this, and they're like, I've been told I can't have surgery. And there's actually Vanessa had MS and trigeminal neuralgia and had successful surgery with Dr. Lim. So it just shows them like, hey, there is someone who's done this, and then you can be connected to that individual and talk to them too.
Because there's probably a lot of people just like you, young people maybe in high school playing soccer or some other sports where they have a lot of concussions, and they just think they're migraines, but they could be something else. So.
Right. And they say this is super rare. They say most people who have this are like 60, 70 years old. And, I've had issues since I was 14 or 15. But the magic words are kind of like the shocks and stabs, which mine didn't start until I was 32, and my cousin had her 2 surgeries when she was, I think, 22, 23 years old. And she learned what was going on through me. So, I'm not saying everyone has this. Obviously there's, CTE and other things, but if you have shocks and stabs or teeth pain where you need all these root canals, or your face hurts from the wind, it's something that you can look into. And And Dr. Lim actually does virtual consults. So you can reach out to their team. You get an MRI with and without contrast. He'll review the imaging to see if there's a place touching, which is known as a compression. And then you go over your symptoms, and then he can tell you, yes, I can help you. No, I think this is someone else or something else. And that way you're not flying out there, so that's really nice that they're able to do that depending on what state you're in for the licenses. But in Texas, they can. So,
and just like with you having those MRIs and the radiologist missing it,
yes,
you could have sent the MRI to Dr. Lim and he could have found it earlier, but is that how it got? Well, you said it was a doctor at Baylor that discovered it.
Yeah. So the radiologist at Baylor said negative, and then the doctor did find it, but he didn't really do a lot of these surgeries. So that's why I kind of looked at YouTube and found Dr. Lim. And, I don't know the exact amount, but I know he does surgeries on Mondays and Tuesdays. And I know he's done several thousand of them versus someone saying I've done, I do 3 a year. And, you want someone with experience and the technology, knowing what's going on. So, but there is a girl who, another MVD warrior who actually had watched a podcast on Sons of the Flag, and her brother decided to do one of the events and was like, hey, you guys are inspiring. My sister has this rare condition. No one knows how to help her. She has had over like 25 procedures. She had, nerve blocks, implants, stimulators, nothing helped. And he's like, it's trigeminal neuralgia. And they're like, okay, we know someone. So I started talking to her, and she took her regular MRI with and without contrast from 10 years ago that doctors looked at and said, there's no place touching, you can't have surgery. And Dr. Lim looked at it and looked at both sides and said, yep, there's a place here and there. And she had both her surgeries. And literally, I want to say it was 2 months after surgery, she ran a marathon, which she used to do a long time ago. So you get real eager, like once you're healed up, you want to start living and getting back to what you used to do. But it's, how many people are told there's nothing on their imaging and you just sit there with no hope.
Just thinking it's a migraine and, you're doing the best you can.
Yeah. And I say the same thing for a lot of people say, a lot of people you help are women. And there are some men that have gone through the procedure, but I think a lot of men with TBI injuries automatically could assume, hey, there's, nothing that can be done for me, and there's other therapies, obviously, that a lot of stuff going on in Dallas, but may not know about this. And there's actually a Green Beret veteran, Tom, that I connected with on LinkedIn. And this is probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And he actually goes, what's wrong with you? I read all your symptoms and I have all of this. And he had the jaw pain and teeth pain. And through the military connections, he had jaw surgery. They wired his mouth shut thinking it was that. And his had gotten so bad. And finally, I'm like, it's trigeminal neuralgia. And he goes, I've been told I don't have that because I have these different symptoms. So I'll never forget, he went to Dr. Lim, had surgery, and he said, Dr. Lim told me they had to peel the artery off my nerve because he had been in different explosions, obviously being in the military. And he called me the day after surgery, and he's like, it's all gone. Like the pressure's gone, the shocks, the stabs, everything's gone. Mine was immediate. Some people's can be a couple weeks or months. It just depends. And he was literally on the phone working like 3 or 4 days later because he felt so good. So I think there's a lot of military that could potentially have this as well from some of the TBI injuries. So
it's amazing that you have been able to help so many people just by telling your story. And that's kind of the hope I have, is that people will see this, because you may have a son or a daughter or an aunt or somebody, even you might have it, and just go to Sheena's website and kind of see some of the information she has, and it may be that they can get surgery done and have a better life. So,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you have something else coming up pretty soon?
Yes. So I haven't talked about it yet, but I'm going to talk about it here. So a lot of people who have these neuralgias, you can have multiple. So the surgery I had done, there's a couple nerves in there that can all be addressed at the same time. All of those are great. And after I completed my surgeries, so this one was right side was 2019, left was 2020. I still would get these episodes of just in the back of my head, like that trigger point right here. And it can go behind your ear and kind of up into your eye. It can even kind of play around in the top of your teeth, in your temple, even a shock or two, like behind your eye. So after my surgeries, I went in, I think in the end of 21, beginning of somewhere in there, 21. And I got diagnosed with occipital neuralgia. And you can actually get that from having this surgery, just with the procedure that's done and the tightness and pulling and scars and stuff. And basically your greater occipital nerve runs here, your lesser runs behind your ear. And I went in and was getting nerve blocks in my C2 to C5 and in my greater and lesser occipital nerves. And what it felt like was you could have like a knife in the back of your head up into your eye, and imagine someone just pulling like this for 3 days nonstop. Like you could feel the nerve is in your head. And rizatriptan would help, but the blocks, most blocks only work, 2, 3, 4 weeks, some a couple months. And I had steroid blocks that would last about 6 months. So 2 years ago, I consulted with Dr. Wilson, and he is actually under Dr. Lim at Stanford. Phenomenal doctor, felt all the feels. And then I started dating my boyfriend, and I was like, I just want to be normal. I don't want to go do this surgery. And I decided to keep doing the nerve blocks. And about 3 weeks ago, I did my blocks, and they always make me a little red from the steroids. My body hates steroids. Swells my face, as you can see a little. And I'm okay with that. But then my chest got really tight, and I was having heart palpitations at nighttime for a couple weeks where it was kind of fluttering and I could feel it just beating. So I've been watching my blood pressure, and I canceled my left side blocks. So now I can kind of feel the little different things it's doing. And I'm not in pain. Obviously, I have a very high pain tolerance. Going back real quick, the recovery on this surgery was 6 to 12 weeks. And like I said, I was back after 2. So I'm just kind of high pain tolerance. So I ended up consulting the 2 years ago and learned that these nerves can have 3 things going on. They're not cranial. So Dr. Lim doesn't do that procedure, but you can have a blood vessel, vein, or artery pushing on your occipital nerve. You can have scar tissue on there, or the fascia from your muscle can be compressing it too tight from pulling. So I eat very healthy. I do the blood type diet to limit inflammation, work out 5-6 days a week to keep everything stretched out. But recently had to start doing kind of dry needling again. And with this reaction, I'm like, I can't keep doing steroids, because I would actually go under anesthesia for 12 minutes, do the steroid nerve blocks with guided ultrasound. And I was doing that 4 times a year. So it was just too much steroids and basically a Band-Aid. So called up to Stanford, Dr. Wilson, and basically did the consult. And he's like, everything's still the same. And I've got 2 or 3 friends that did the MVD surgeries that also did this. So I was able to learn from them. And it's an hour procedure, big old scar right in the back of your head. And they go in there and basically dig all the scar tissue out. So if your nerve is supposed to be like this, right now there's scar tissue around it and other things compressing. So they kind of remove all that, where that nerve is just sitting healthy again in the back of your head. So it should be way easier. And we're going to fly back the next day. Hopefully, if I have any issues or pain, we can delay it a day or 2. But obviously, since I flew back 2 days after having a hole drilled in my head, hopefully I'll be pretty good on this one. So it's called the occipital decompression surgery. And we'll be flying out to Palo Alto next week to do the surgery next Friday. So I'll be able to update you. And when I knew I had this, I joked and I said, I think this is God's way of me being able to understand something else and get the message out there to share with others on a procedure that can help them. And kind of, I know that's his purpose for me, is to, share all these neuralgias, and you can have multiple, and knowing it as the suicide disease, that there are other avenues to explore, like we talked about the psychedelics that may work for a veteran, but maybe you have this, so.
That's great that you can tell your story and help all these other people. So
yes, and obviously what you guys are doing is a blessing, because these podcasts, even if we can help one or two people, and then they're shared with more and more people, because there's so many illnesses and injuries where there's just knowledge everywhere. And if you go research trigeminal neuralgia, it's really just textbook information. And a lot of it is teeth pain, can't touch your face. And it doesn't sound like anything I even went through, so podcasts like what you guys are doing are making a huge difference, because this allows, millions of people to just get that knowledge and maybe get that little glimmer of hope and reach out to him for a consult to learn more. So I appreciate that.
One of our listeners, Carla, she said, can a person have this condition in other areas of the body? And I guess maybe they can.
So everything is basically located up here in your head with the nerves. So the 12 cranial nerves, the trigeminal is your fifth one. There's all that same surgery. There's one called glossopharyngeal neuralgia, which is your ninth nerve, and it goes into your throat. So a lot of people have it hurts to swallow. Their tongue can feel like it's burning. Your glands get swollen. And then there's one called geniculate, which is into your ear. But what's tricky about your ear is it can be any of those three, but all of those can be addressed with that same MVD. And then the occipital one is not cranial. And with what you're asking is, all of this was hurting so bad in my head and neck that it was hurting my muscles, my lats, traveling into my elbow, making my hands tingle. So it can affect, your body all over, depending on how bad it gets. And that's what's so hard to diagnose it is. I'll never forget one Christmas, my mom, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, it feels good when I push here. When I do this, this hurts. And my mom's like, what is wrong with you? This can't all be related. And it is, and my parents are both huge supporters. And I would say, my mom, out of everyone, fully understands this the most from all the stories and what she's seen of me, what you're willing to go through to feel better. The stories of all the people that we've helped, you learn what they've gone through, what their symptoms are. And that's what's really hard is you don't see the physical ailment. So a lot of these people who have trigeminal neuralgia, their family, oh, you're just making that up, or you have a headache, you're fine. And that's what's really hard for these individuals is they feel like nobody understands. So, once again, to watch a podcast and see this, you're like, I'm not crazy. Someone else has the same symptoms as me.
It's kind of like post-traumatic. It's kind of like post-traumatic stress. It's on the inside, and you don't have the scars or the symptoms on the outside.
Yes, and that ties into I got let go, let God. Hard to see. But after my surgeries, we are always considered in remission. So heaven forbid I get in a car accident and hit my head, and something gets knocked loose or a new place is touching. I may need surgery again. Or there's people that a new place has touched and they have to have surgery. So a lot of people do have post-traumatic stress because you can, on a bad day, if the weather's bad or you're super stressed, or they've even found if you change the chemical makeup, you start taking weight loss drugs or some other new medication, it could alter, and you start getting some of the symptoms. People have that post-traumatic stress, it's back. Oh my gosh. And, I've learned that you just have to kind of let go and let God. And I would have never imagined I had this as my journey, but it's a blessing. And, knock on wood, I don't have to do these again. They say if you hit 5 years, that's kind of the good marker. But if I do, it's the positives. I know where to go, what to do, have the support. But there is a lot of people who struggle even after surgery, fearing it will come back. So,
and it's a blessing that you can help other people. Chris, she said it's amazing, and then Maria said, "Good morning and God bless." So, just a lot of people, and a lot of these people that are watching today, they're like you. They're a great servant. I mean, they're out there helping people all the time, and that's what's so nice to be around you and the organizations that you work with, because they're all just great people. Yesterday we had with Sons of the Flag, we had a veterans luncheon over at the Dallas Country Club, and these are just part of the people of your tribe. I mean, you've got Keith. We've had Keith on the podcast, and
Yes.
he is energetic.
So, Keith, it's funny. So 5 years ago, we were at the Light Up to Live event, and I was riding around in a golf cart with him. And when I originally met him, I'm like, who's this guy? Like, he smiles more than me and has way more energy than me. So, like, I got to meet him. And he's super spiritual, godly man. And we're riding around in this golf cart. And, obviously he's got his story of what happened to him. And he's, jumping on airplanes and scuba diving and hiking mountains, and nothing slows him down, no excuses. And we're talking, and I'm like, this surgery. And he literally looks at me and he goes, was it going to help? I said, yeah. And he goes, then why wouldn't you do it? And I was like, okay. So I ended up doing the surgery. And then it was almost like, deja vu. We were riding around in the golf cart a couple weeks ago for Light Up to Live. And literally I had just had my steroid block, and I did the event. I'm burning up hot and red, swollen, have my sunglasses on, just going through the motions. And he goes, you're just doing Band-Aids. I was like, I know. And he goes, is it going to help? I go, yeah. He goes, then why don't you do it? And I said, man, I feel like God put us here again, where we're just having these conversations. So it's, even though he's gone through something different, it's still this great community in DFW of veterans and his own journey, where he's inspiring me to, do the surgeries, and helps me have that faith to carry on. And then I'm able to help others. So, it's people
absolutely
like him sharing his story that, helped me as well. So
a great story. And we just are grateful that we consider you a dear friend.
yes.
And we just will love the fact that, you help so many people, just with a nonprofit, but now you're helping them in some life-changing things to help them through the same journey. It's like a minefield, and you're standing on the other side. You don't step there, step over here, and get them safely across in their journey. So
Yes. No, I appreciate it. And anyone, please reach out. If you go to my website, you can literally just type in your name, email, phone, and I will answer anyone who needs help. I walk people through pre and post-op surgery, or even if you don't want to do surgery, maybe it's the blood type diet or just different changes that could be, causing triggers. And I would say, don't ever be afraid to share this and reach out. And to end on this, my good friend Daphne and Stephen, they're in Garland. She's on Garland ISD school board. Stephen used to be city council. His wife had horrible migraines, and people describe it different. It's a shock, a stab, a pulse. And he goes, please talk to her. So he kind of coordinated a lunch where we would all be together, and we talked, and we work on all these events in Garland, and she has it. And she flew to Dr. Lim, I believe 2 years ago, and had surgery. So, one of my friends in Garland on the school board has it. And if you really start talking to people, you'd be surprised who has these issues and symptoms. And like I said earlier, I don't wish this upon anyone, but if you know someone who's struggling really bad and they can get that diagnosis, get validation, find a community of support, and then they choose to go that route, there's people here to support them to, hopefully have a life of less pain. So
absolutely. Well, Sheena, thank you so much for being on Hometown Heroes, and we're just blessed that we got to see you yesterday, and can't wait until the next time we see you. We'd like to invite you to roll call pretty soon.
For sure.
Let me know when.
Make a trip to West Fort Worth, or I guess Willow Park now.
Yeah, Willow Park right now.
But thank you so much,
Thank
and
you for having me.
keep up the good fight and keep doing the good work.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. We love you so much.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Talk soon.
Bye bye. Well, what a great story. It's not always the veterans that have been in the foxholes or, in battles and stuff. People have their own battles and their own uh, things just like that Sheena was struggling with. And it just seems like sometimes it's never going to end. And then you find something that can heal you and get you back normal again. So
Yeah. And so you would never know that she was in pain or struggling, because anytime you see her, the face, just as most people like Sheena do, right? The face that you put on outwardly is everything's good, I'm great, life is wonderful. And sometimes you just don't know what pain, whether it's something like what Sheena has or anything else that people are going through. You don't always know what's going on. So you have to get to really talk to people. And we all too often walk around and go, hey, how you doing? And we don't even most time wait to hear the response.
or
And
it's just always the same response. Oh, I'm doing good, or I'm fine.
yeah, and when people ask me that, and I'll say, oh, I can't complain, and they kind of look at you, and I go, yeah, and if I did, who would listen to me anyway? So I just keep going. But certainly, sometimes somebody does want to talk about something that's going on, and we don't take the time to stop and listen. And our busy, hurry, get going, do things world, sometimes we just need to actually ask that question and mean it. If we think that we sense that somebody is not really okay, stop and really talk to them. Just don't keep walking on by.
Just kind of be in the moment and be engaged with those people, because so many times, I mean, just like at roll call, you got all these things going on, and there's people there that have problems and issues, and we don't know about it.
Right.
But we see them every month or see them every week, and they've got these hurts that nobody knows about. So we just need to engage more and be more sensitive to the things that we hear and see, and be able to be there for other people.
Yeah, definitely be present in the moment, right? So that
Absolutely.
is important. And we make the world a better place when we can do that.
And Sheena's one of those people that makes the world a better place. So
Yes, she definitely is.
one of those people. Just, I mean, we didn't talk about Christella, but Christella, she's one of those people that's just magnificent, and she's everywhere, and she's such a great friend of the different organizations, and really helps to get involved and promote and just do things. And we always say every week, we're so blessed, Mary, that we
are.
can be around people like Sheena and Christella and all the great people we're around. And just like with roll call, all the people that go there to serve, there's just so many people that are just so giving. And it's like, Tom Holder, he's always there, and we just got a lot of great people. Roll call's coming up. The reservation hotline
It's open.
came on the other. Yeah, is it full yet?
Oh no, I think when I looked at it this morning, we were at about 250. So there's a good couple hundred seats still left. So if anybody wants to come, they need to definitely go to the website, and then right there on the homepage below the mission statement, you'll find the link to RSVP. If they're not a member yet, it'll actually give them a little prompt if they wish to join. Sometimes people want to come to a luncheon, see what it's all about, and then decide if they want to become a member. And it doesn't cost anybody anything. I always remind people, the only thing it costs you is a little bit of time to put your information in. So, and it's a free lunch for our veterans. We do ask that the non-veterans contribute the $15, the cost of the meal. so that we don't have to spend the money that we get donated to have a free veterans lunch on the non-veterans. But it's important that we continue to bring the veterans together to share their stories and to have, I was thinking about it yesterday, even when we were at that lunch, is that, we have a room of 450 people, and they start getting there at 9:30 in the morning just so that they can visit with one another. And then it becomes 10 o'clock, 10:30. By 10:30, the room's half full, and it's getting really loud because everybody's just talking, and it just continues to expand on how people interact. We talked to a young man last night at our board meeting about potentially coming on in a fundraising position. And when we were talking to him, one of our board members asked, well, what did you think when you came to the first lunch? And he said how he felt so welcome. And he's not an older vet, he's a younger vet. And he sat at the table with people he didn't even know, and everybody started asking him, hey, who are you? What did you do? And they just started talking. And he said he just felt so comfortable and he felt so welcome. And I think that that's what the luncheons do, is whether or not you want to share your military story or anything personal. You don't have to, but people just sit at that table. And that's why we use the round tables, because they're much more conducive to that kind of a discussion where people just start getting to know each other. And sometimes that's all you need, is somebody to listen to you for 5 minutes today. Oh, you're muted, Rick.
I've had to close out all the sound from the jets, but
yeah, they're active today.
As I'm taking pictures around those tables, it just kind of reminds me of a fire, and people sitting around the fire just relaxed and talking, because you see all these people engaged, and it's just amazing. But we hear so many times, whenever those veterans pass, that their family members say, that was the most important thing that they look forward to every month, was going to roll call. And so it's just a magnificent organization. And that's coming up on the 15th.
It is. And, and we talk about that, and we talk about, paying for those luncheons, and the luncheons, obviously, the costs of everything have gone up. And so we're always looking for sponsors and donors, so if anyone out there is listening and they're considering, what they want to do with, maybe they have a little bit of money at the end of the year that they want to donate, so they don't have to pay extra taxes, please, by all means, reach out to us, because we really could use your donations and help to continue that mission. And we'd love for folks that have a business or are considering donating, come to a luncheon, come see what it's all about. Because once you're there and you actually get to witness what your dollars are going to, and we are very frugal. Nobody at Roll Call gets paid a penny. Every penny that comes in, we are very, very cautious about how we spend it. We look for ways to cut costs wherever we can and keep those prices down. But we really can use that support. So, if you're just not sure, then sign up to come to a luncheon, come sit in that room and experience it. And I promise you, you will see that the money that you give us is used very well to support those veterans, so that they can come together and have that, what you lose when you leave the military, that camaraderie and that fellowship with other people that have walked in those same boots, right? Yesterday, Rick, we were at the Sons of the Flag luncheon, the Stars and Stripes that they do. And the guest speaker was the Major General Army Cavalry. And he's talking and he's sharing this story, and it was so amazing. But at the same time, as he was talking about a lot of the pieces of that story and about the gentleman that he wore his MIA bracelet from Vietnam, it harkened back to Bill Henry, who is our Vietnam veteran who served in Vietnam in cavalry. And and all I kept thinking was, as soon as we're done here, I want those two to meet and talk. And Bill was already headed up when I was trying to go get him to say, you got to come up here and you got to meet him. And they both wanted to meet each other because that connection that you have with somebody is so strong. So it very well could have been that somewhere in the path that Bill Henry had in Vietnam, he could have crossed paths with the man that the general was wearing his MIA bracelet and told his story. And I just could see just connections and sparks. And it's so fun to watch.
Absolutely. And great stories that he talked about yesterday. You know, you're talking about donations, and one of our members, Dwayne Lee, he has the 7-day trip to D-Day, and he told me the other day that there's just about 2 rooms or so left for the trip in 2025, and if you book those through roll call or through him, that he'll do a $250 donation to roll call, but he said that it's very limited now. So if you want to go to D-Day, that's a good time to go.
Yeah, and it's it's a small group, and he takes you to all the historic sites, and he has a person from there that goes with him, and they've done this so much that they know how to take you to all the very historic places that people want to go and see. So that's what makes it extra special. It's not a great big group of impersonal. It's a very personalized small group experience.
And we have a lot of things coming up. Saturday's one of the most sacred days of the year, and that's the Marine Corps birthday. If you don't believe me, just ask a Marine.
Yeah.
So the next day, no, that's Sunday is No, let me get my days right. Yeah, Sunday's the 10th. So that's the Marine Corps birthday. And then the 11th is the Veterans Day, and Freedom Mobility's having their Veterans Day golf challenge there at Robeson Ranch. There's still time if you want to get a team. We've got several hundred people, I think, coming to that golf tournament. But there's some information there. And then on Veterans Day, we have Fort Worth Veterans Day Parade. There's Arlington Veterans Day Parade. There's a lot of restaurants that veterans can eat free, and just a lot of stuff going on. I'll be at the golf tournament on Veterans Day.
I'll be at the Tarrant County Fort Worth.
You'll be at the parade.
We'll have I call it a float. It's a trailer with some chairs on it, and we'll have Mitch Taco Bell there with some of his Hummers. And so we'll be looking for some veterans that want to come ride and wave. And I've even got some candy bags that they could toss out. But if you're out there and you want to actually participate in the parade, then we will be out there, and you can come join us.
And going to parades are important, because if I hadn't gone to the parade in 2018, I wouldn't have met Sheena. So
there you go.
Go to the Veterans Day Parade. On the 12th, Al Chatwin and Doug Peterson are going to be talking at a school, and I think we have some other veterans going on Veterans Day, or maybe Friday before Veterans Day.
Right before, we've got a group going to Wayside Middle School, and on the 11th, we have several going out to different places. The 12th, Don Graves will be speaking. The 11th at night at, let me get the church right, Cross City Church on Airport Freeway at 6 p.m., Don Graves will be speaking. And they have opened that up to anybody that wants to come out and see or hear him. And that's always a really neat one, because they give him enough time to actually share more of the story. So that's Cross City Church, and it's 1000 Airport Freeway in Euless. So if anybody out there is listening and has not heard Don's story or wants to hear it again, maybe thinks they missed parts of it, because sometimes he tells different parts of it. But they're welcome to come out to Cross City that night. 6 p.m. is what it starts, or 6. Yeah. 6. I've got 6 o'clock, 6:30.
And then on the 15th at the Tarrant Area Food Bank, along with Holidays and Heroes, Fort Worth Air Power Council, and the Air Power Foundation, will be putting together the meals that we'll distribute to the base next week in NASJRB, about 100 pounds of Thanksgiving food for every veteran. Or not every veteran, but the lower enlisted military members.
Right.
So that's a great deal. And then Holidays and Heroes is coming up in December. So a lot of stuff going on. But not as busy as October was. October was a busy month. Well, let's see. I think that we had another comment, and that was from Chris. She said, "We, the listeners, are blessed to have you both of you taking your time out to do this. It's a joy for us, and
it is.
We're just blessed that this just kind of happened, and we couldn't have done it without our friend Larry O'Neill. He's the one that kind of had this idea over 2 years ago, over 100, probably 112 episodes ago. He said, let's do this. And so we started down there, spent about a year down there at his museum doing this. He's got an annual bike drive. And I mean, you don't have to fill out any paperwork or anything for Larry's bike drive if you want a bike for your kid. You just show up, and it's going to be December 14th at Farrington Field in Fort Worth. But they're trying to get 1,000 bikes, and I think they will probably be close to that. So just another good way to give back to the community.
Yep.
Well, Mary, it's been good.
Yeah.
And
another great show.
We'll see you all next week on Hometown Heroes.